Should the New South Wales state government pay between 200 and 400 million to keep Australia's biggest coal-fired power station, Eraring, open for 2 more years, or simply give every New South Wales household a solar and battery package?
Allegra Spender, let me hear from you first on this. This is in your home state.
Yeah, look, I think that I don't want to see Eraring stay open beyond when it's currently closed, sent to be closed, and I think it's time for us to actually take action to support households for this transition. Because frankly, households are suffering from high power bills, from high petrol prices and high cost of living. And I think we have a great opportunity to support families, renters, a lot of renters in my area, a lot of people in apartments, finding solutions that help those households lower their power bills in a way that is both good for the environment and it's good for their hip pocket.
Nicki,
so that's where I think we should be driving our money.
Nicki, the New South Wales government argues it needs to do this, pay to keep it going, because it's obviously worried about supply, energy supply. What do you think?
Yeah, look, supply is obviously an issue, and if we just got off our backsides and went faster with renewables, we wouldn't be in this position. We've, as the Minister said, wasted 10 years across states and federal government in failing to make decisions, and particularly with the build-out of transmission lines, which is a big problem. But the one thing that I just cannot countenance, look, I get a bit emotional here. I became a grandmother 10 days ago to the most beautiful baby girl. And all I can think about is her future and what sort of planet. You look at the intergenerational report, you look at what climate change is going to do to our planet, not necessarily in my lifetime, but in her lifetime. And we cannot expand coal mines, we cannot keep putting more LNG facilities there. Fossil fuels have to come to an end. The International Energy Agency just this week, the CEO said this is the end. He's already called out coal, he's now calling out oil and gas. We can't expand, we have to find alternatives. If you do a cost-benefit analysis of any of these decisions and you put a fair price of carbon, the damages cost, a social cost of carbon on it, you would never make any of these decisions because economically it does not stack up.
Chris Bowen, what do you honestly think about your Labor colleagues in New South Wales using taxpayers' money to keep Eraring?
Well, they haven't said that they will do that yet. So let's just look at these.
Well, they're in negotiations.
They're in discussions with Origin Energy. So we are in the middle. I completely understand, Hilary, why you'd ask that question, and I understand where you're coming from. I don't think it's as simple as a transfer of, supporting households onto solar, but I completely understand where you're coming from. Now, we are in the middle of this massive economic transformation as coal-fired power leaves our system. And hardly anybody would suggest we need new coal-fired power. Ted's party does from time to time. But
what do you think of this decision, Chris Bowen?
So I'm just getting to that point. What I do think of this decision is that I understand that in managing this very delicate transition, governments, our government and state governments, will time to time look at it and make assessments about whether something should happen a little bit faster or a little bit slower just to manage it.
And what's your view here?
Penny Sharp, the State Minister, has said she doesn't want to see Eraring stay open a day longer than it needs to. I agree with her. And it can't shut a day earlier than it has to, and I agree with that as well. So none of us want to see a lengthy extension, well, certainly I don't, a lengthy extension of Eraring, but I completely understand.
What does lengthy mean?
I'm not going to second guess what the government's trying to do here at state government.
But it does have impacts, with respect, Minister, on your emissions targets, right? So can you shed some light on that for us? Will running Eraring for another couple of years, biggest coal-fired power station in the country, make it harder for you to achieve your targets?
Well, it's scheduled to close in 2025. Our target is, of course, 2030. But look,
does it make it harder?
Well, our 2030 target is, we're on a trajectory.
But does extending Eraring make that harder?
Well, nobody's talking about extending to 2030.
No, but to 2027?
Nobody has suggested that, and the target is 2030.
I'm asking if extending its life for 2 more years makes your target harder to achieve.
No, not necessarily. That wouldn't. But the state government has said that they don't want it to stay open for a day longer than it needs to. They don't want to pay Origin any money. They want to have a discussion with Origin. And Origin has said in meetings with them and with me, they don't want to see it leave earlier than would provide any, or that would create any instability in the system. So, look, there are going to be times when coal-fired power station and closures are brought forward. Some of those have been announced in the last little while. There's going to be times when people say, look, I think this one we just need to look at, is that exactly the right time? Is August 2025 You know, was that handed down from the Mount as the exact time it must close, or would it make sense to talk to Origin about a staged withdrawal? That's the discussion that the New South Wales...
And is this largely being driven, and perhaps, Nicki, you'd be able to answer this, is it driven by the problems with the transmission line rollout? Is that the reason why decisions like this are going to have to be taken?
Supply is definitely a factor in that. And if you look at... there are a lot of renewables that are projects that are ready to go in the new zones, but they can't... The basically existing transmission is kind of full. Can't take new projects on.
And there's community backlash.
And so so there's a backup. But, you know, the New South Wales government was supposed to have the new lines in by 2025. It's now out to 2028. Now, we've just got to get better at... So many of our problems today are caused by bad planning systems. You think about housing affordability and certainly the climate crisis. We just don't get the planning right. And we have got to find some way to make these decisions better and quicker, with consideration for the natural environment. I don't want to see, you know, my favourite birds, a magpie, you know, falling out of the sky because we've you know, cleared all the land, or koalas gone from anywhere. You know, we have to be able to consider that.
And clearly,
but we've got to do better to go faster.
Clearly,
somehow.
there are concerns about the impacts climate change is going to have on more severe weather events as well. And we know there are concerns about the summer that's coming and the bushfire risks. And in fact, we have in the